This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Nun Tes. I'm holding on Nun Tes Amid Aleph, the top line. Tanat. We had three pshatim. Into what pshat? In the fact that a marzev, a drain spout, has no chazaka, but at the same time, yish mikaima chazaka. The third pshat was Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, who taught us that a marzev ain't the chazaka, that if one wants to build, the neighbor could build underneath your marzev, your drain spout, but the makaim has a chazaka, meaning he cannot remove entirely the drain spout. So says the Gemara on the top line of the Testament, Aleph Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah, Mazlicha yesh chazaka. The Mazlicha itself has a chazaka. So we had a Marzev and a Mazlicha. The Marzev was the drain spout, the Mazlicha is the gutter. So says the Gemara, the first two pshatim Shmuel Rav Chanina. It makes sense to machalik between Marziv and Mazlicha. As Rashbam on the third line speaks out, but a Mazlicha does have a chazaka. Why? Because it's more of a kavias, and you don't normally move it from place to place. Also, Rav Chanina, that if it's short, long to shorten it, but a Mazlicha has a chazaka, you cannot shorten it. But says the Gemara Laman Damar, according to this third pshat, Shem writes to live no starta baina my nafkala mina. Why by the marzev can you build underneath it? But why by the mazlicha would you not be able to build underneath it? It's the same thing. Explains the Gemara. Talking about the gutter of construction, and therefore he cannot build underneath it. Why not? I don't want your building here. Why? Because it will damage the walls of the gutter. So even according to the third pshat, even according to Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, we have a way of explaining the chiluk between marziv and mazlicha, and therefore it is not a kasha. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Tzinor, a pipe, Amikaleach Mayim Lechatzer Chaveiroi, a pipe pours water into the chutzner of your friend. And the roof's owner comes to plug up the pipe. The balachutzer is allowed to prevent him. Just as you have acquired right to my chutzner, lemishta beimaya, to put your water in it. I was kind of the water that comes from your roof. Just like you're allowed to let your rainwater run into my field, you're not allowed to stop it because I now want the rainwater. So Itmar says the Gemara, this is really a machlekes. 12 lines down, the first line is Maya. Rav Aishi Amar Ma'akev, Rav Chama Amar Ina Ma'akev. A machlekes, that even though you have the rights to discharge your water from your roof into your neighbor's property, can the neighbor stop you or not? As Machlik Rav Aisha and Rav Chanina. Says the Gemara, Azal Shailu Rav Bisa. They went to ask Rav Bisa, who was the father of Rav Chama. Amar Le Ma'akev. You said that you could, yes, stop the owner. Kari Ale Rami Bar Chama, Sir Bar Chama said, V'achot Mishulash Leimim here, you know, take Zer Rav Aisha, Benoy Shel Rav Chama, Benoy Shel Rav Bisa. A three-stranded chut cord will not easily be broken. The three gedolim that Rav Aisha went with the opinion of his grandfather, and therefore, inasmuch as Rav Chama said Einoi Ma'akev, Rav Bisa said Lamaisa, it is Ma'akev, which is like Rav Aisha, and Chotam Mishulash Lamhira Yina take as the Torah comes back around. Sulam HaMitzri in Lachazaka said the Mishnah Chalik between Sulam HaMitzri, Chalain HaMitzri in Lachazaka, Sulam HaMitzri in Lachazaka. Explains the Gemara, the two dots, 15 lines down. Echi Dami, Sulam HaMitzri, Amrei Dvei Rav Yani, Kosha in La Arba, Chavakim. Anything that does not have four rungs, it's so small, therefore it's not a chazaka. Chalaina mitzvah chazaka. Maishle gabi sulam toloi mefarish. Maishle gabi chalain dimefarish. Says the Gemara, What's the reason why when it came to a sulam, we did not explain, but a chaloin we did? Why does the Mishnah explain the difference? Explains the Gemara, if ligu Rav Yehuda b'seifa. Why? Because Rav Yehuda argued in the seifa by the chaloin ha-mitzri, and therefore, in order to show what Rav Yehuda held, we had to say what a chaloin ha-mitzri was. And that's the reason why the end of the Mishnah said, Ezeu chaloin ha-mitzri, whether Rosh Adam likanes l'toicha. I mean, when it came to the ladders, we don't have that machlekes. We don't have to list the definition. When it came to the chaloin, because we wanted to bring down the opinion of Rav Yehuda b'seifa, therefore the Mishnah listed and explained what a chaloin ha-mitzri was. Amar Rav Zeira, says Rav Zeira. The Mishnah said a chaloin from Suriyaz yasei chazaka. So it says Rav Zeira lamata midal ramois yesh chazaka. If a window is opened less than 4 amos, creates a chazaka. V'yachal imchais, and therefore the one could protest during 3 years that he's unhappy about such a window. L'malim me'arba amos ein lachazaka v'ein lachol limchais. Rav Illa Amar, says Rav Illa, no. Afilu l'malim me'arba amos ein lachazaka v'yachal limchais. Lema be'kayvin al midas daim kemifli. So what is this machlekes between Rav Illa and Rav Zeira? It would sound like, are we kayvin al midas daim? That one person is benefiting, the other person is not losing, and he just doesn't like it. So do we force someone in such a scenario or not? It seemingly seems that Mar Zeira says kayvin al midas daim, and therefore, even though the neighbor is not losing, because the neighbor is not losing anything, he cannot tell him to close the window. Because kaifin al midas time, you're acting like Sadaim, you don't lose anything. Let me have my window. Whereas Umar Savar holds no, ain't kaifin al midas time. If you want to be makbid, you could be makbid. It says Umar, that's not the machlekes. Loi de kuliyamba, of course, holds kaifin al midas time. That if you're not losing anything, you have no reason to block the presence of this other guy's window. V'shayni hacha, tamerlei zimnin. In this case, is different. Why? Because you can say zimnin demoisis sharshifa tutach, that at times you might put a bench underneath the window of a kaimte v'chazis, and you're going to go look into my courtyard, and therefore that he's allowed to protest because the window itself is not the issue. But in order to open the window, you might, or to sit by the window, you might put a chair there, and then you might come to look over the fence, and that's the reason why I'm allowed to object of the window. Says the Gemara, who does like Kamei Rav Ami, Shatu like Kamei Rav Abba Bar Mamel. Rav Ami sent the person Rav Mamel. Amar le, Avilei Krav Illa, Amar Shmuel, Ula Afilu Kol Shu Yesh Chazaka. Do like Ula and Shmuel said when it comes to Oira, if the window is providing light, then afilu kolshu yesh a chazaka, that does create a chazaka. A window that's open to let it into light into a dark room is something that one wants, and therefore, if the neighbor doesn't like that window, that is certainly something that he has to protest. And if he doesn't, it creates a chazaka. We continue with the Mishnah at the bottom of Nun Tesam and Aleph. Now we want to know about creating a chazaka in the airspace. That when I build something and it overhangs into your property, you're my neighbor next door, is the usage of your airspace create a chazaka or not? So says the Mishnah, Haziz, if I have a beam and that beam goes into your chatzir, at least a tefach, yesh chazaka, that creates a chazaka if you're not moicha. And of course, as we turn over to Nintesima base, you are able to be moicha. Pachas mitavach ein lachazaka, therefore ein yachal limchais. Says the Gemara, Amar Avasi, Amar Ramani, V'amila, Amar Rav Yankiv, Amar Ramani, Hechsik b'tavach, Hechsik b'dalid. When you make a chazak for 1 tavach, it's a chazak for 4 tvachim. My kamer, what does that mean? Amar Rabbi Achi kamer. Hechsik roicha tavach b'meshech arba. Hechsik b'roicha arba. If you have 1 by 4, that gives you the rights to put something even 4 tvachim wide. Pachs mitavach ein lachazak v'in yachal limchais. Says the Gemara, Ravuna loishana bal hagag b'bal hachatzir. Says Ravuna, the owner of the roof cannot protest against the owner of the chatzir. Bala Chatzar Balagag always is Yachal Imchais. He's able to protest even if it's less than 8 tefach. Rav Yehuda no, if you look Bala Chatzar Balagag in Yachal Imchais. So says the Gemara, what's this machlekes? Seemingly, this machlekes of Huna and Rav Yehuda is Leima behezik Ri'iyah Kamifligi. The Mar Savar Shemei Hezek. Seemingly Rav Huna who allows the Chatzar guy to protest because he holds of Hezek Ri'iyah. Omar Savar and Rav Yehuda says Lo Shemei Hezek. It's not called that damage just by looking into the other person's property. Says Gemara Lo. The Kuli Alma of course holds Shemei Hezek. A very important yesod. Changing something that enables one neighbor to see more of the other's property, that's called Hezek. Shmei Hezek. So what over here is the machlekes and yachad amrei tashmish dalei chazi. Over here the machlekes is that this little beam has no usage, and therefore I can't even go and stand in it. It won't even allow me to create a hezek riyah. Lamay chazi. What's this little beam utilized for? Limits libe midi, paying something on it. Ma'ajana abe. I'll turn away my face. Vitalina bay and hang on it. Meaning the fact that I have this little beam into your courtyard, I can just look away and hang something on it. Doesn't mean I'm gonna end up looking into your property, and therefore that's not the nekudas hamach loikes. What does the other man hold? No, at times you might come to see. Meaning everyone agrees to create a matziv that you're going to see more into your neighbor's chutzah that wasn't there prior. That everyone agrees is yes, hezek. What's over here the machlekes? Machlekes over here is when you have something that I couldn't utilize it without looking into your property. I can hang it on the hook, but I might come to look. That's the machlekes where the ruchayshesh for that. We continue with the Mishnah on the second half of the Testament. First, can I open his windows the chatzar ashotfim into a jointly owned chatzar? Someone purchased another house in a chatzar that's next door. He's not allowed to open it up into a joint owned chatzar. Someone built an aliyah on top of his house. Can't open the attic into a chatzar owned by Shotvim. So what can he do? He can build a room within his house and build an attic onto his house and open it into his own house. But opening into a neighbor's property, that would not be allowed. So says the Gemara, what is this first in the Mishnah, but opening your window into the chatzar Shotvim? Says the Gemara, my area l'chatzar Shotvim. Why are you talking about chatzar Shotvim? You should not even be able to open it into your friend's chatzar. Why dafka chatzar Shotvim? Explains the Gemara, of course. The Mishnah is teaching you a bigger chedesh. That's pashit the law. You can't open a window into. Either of the sanuim minach. Either way, you own this chatzar jointly. So either way, you don't have privacy in this chatzar. So maybe I can tell you, either way, you have to hide yourself in the chatzar. Respond, it's a different story. Until now, I only had to conceal myself in the chatzar. But now when you open a window into the courtyard, even when you're in your house, I have to hide myself. Meaning, when the chatzar is owned jointly, so okay, I know when you're the chatzar, I should be careful. But now the bayis into the chatzar. Now, even when you're not in the chatzar, but in your bayis, I have to be concerned. And that's the reason why, says the Gemara, one could protest. Tana Rabban Ma'isa B'Adam Echad, 4 lines down from the bottom of the Nun Testament base. Shepaz Echad Loina the Chatzar Ashot in the Bal of Nei Rabbi Yishmael Bar Rav Yoisi. Omerlei Echzakta B'ni Echzakta, opening a window into your friend's property creates a chazaka. Balifnei Rav Chiamar Yergata Upasachta, you toiled and you open a window. Yiga, now you have to spend energy visasam and close the window. There's no chazaka. Amar Rav Nachman, what's the psak halachas? We turn over to Samach Amid Aleph. V'listoim says Rav Nachman, if he sealed up a window by building a wall next to it, meaning, if we have one thing next door to each other, this happens often by someone doing extensions to houses, and now my wall blocks your window. If you don't say anything, there's going to be a chazaka. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata d'shmaya.